I've been pretty fortunate along my automotive journey from the time when I was a 16-year-old first-time driver all the way up until now. My first car was a 1990 Mitsubishi Eclipse. I graduated from that to a 1988 Ford Mustang GT, which I raced bracket style in the quarter mile. I've driven a 96 Eclipse Turbo, 2009 Audi S5. Now I have a BMW M340i, and I recently had a Porsche 911. Some pretty cool cars. But I gotta tell you, the coolest one is sitting right here next to me. This is my 2012 Nissan GTR, and it is awesome. So this is, for all intents and purposes, a practical, everyday supercar. Nissan started producing these in 2007 in the Japanese market and brought them to the United States for the first time ever in 2009. The GTR as a brand has existed for 20, 30 plus years and has a long racing heritage. And the US market has long wanted the GTR to be available here. Well, this is the first generation that Nissan actually put the steering wheel on the left side of the car and sold it in the United States. When I was shopping around for one of these cars, I had a couple of parameters that I really wanted to stick to. The very first one is that it had high mileage. And the reason for that is that I want to be able to drive this car. I don't want to have it be a garage queen. I want to be able to take it out in the rain, take it out in the snow, take it out whenever I want it. It's an all-wheel drive car, it can handle it. But I didn't want to feel like I was devaluing the car by enjoying it. So this car actually has over 100,000 miles on it. And I used that as a negotiating point to be able to score, honestly, a pretty sweet deal on this car. I had it checked out by a Nissan GTR technician prior to purchase. He gave me the all clear. In fact, when I had the car at the dealership to be checked out, the sales department called me and tried to buy it from me, which was a pretty interesting experience. The second thing that I wanted it to be blue. Nissan's Deep Blue Pearl is an amazing paint with a super deep metallic flake, and in the sunlight, looks great. The third thing is that I wanted it to be unmodified. You're gonna modify a GTR if you have it, but you kind of want to do it on your own terms. I didn't want somebody else's vision. I'm gonna put an exhaust on this, probably some aero, something like that. But I didn't want to buy somebody else's car that already had that done. First of all, I don't know how it was done, who did it, what the quality of the work is. And second of all, I don't know that I necessarily agree with everything they may have done to this car. So I wanted something that was stock. And the last thing that I definitely wanted was a certain range of years. So this is a 2012, and this falls within what's called the DBA range of GTRs. The first generation up to 2011 was CBA. They had a lot of issues with the transmission, and they were also down on horsepower versus this car by about 50. The second generation, 2012 to 2016, or DBA, these cars, 530 horsepower, better transmissions, a lot of different tweaks and more usability added on to these cars, although the platform obviously remains the same. And then the third generation, 2017 plus, significant price jump, some additional body modifications, but again, largely the same platform. I wanted a 2012 to a 2016 because they were attainable in price, solved a lot of the issues of the first generation cars, and were still a ton of fun. So let's talk about what makes this car a supercar killer, and that is the engine. 530 horsepower out of a twin turbo V6 that is hand built in Japan by one of 4 Takumis. In Japanese, Takumi means master craftsman, and all of the GTR engines that you see in every GTR ever produced was made by one of 4 guys. And that's why these cars are pretty limited in production. The interior of these cars aren't necessarily their strong suit, but there's not a whole lot in here that detracts from this car's experience. The materials are pretty nice, there's leather everywhere, the seats are comfortable, and the cabin is pretty spacious. It has some pretty nice creature features like heated seats and things like that. And operability is really good. Visibility in the dashboard is definitely a plus, and I don't mind the interior on these cars at all. They even have back seats, sort of. You could definitely fit maybe a small child back here. Fitting adults back there I think would be tantamount to kind of torture, but there are back seats, they do exist, so this is a 2+2. But if we're talking practicality, honestly, the thing that makes this car a practical, everyday, usable vehicle is stuff like this. This is a pretty good sized trunk. You could fit luggage in here, or groceries, or a misbehaving child, or whatever you want. It's actually not bad. But honestly, the reason that you buy one of these isn't to look at the interior features or to stick your head in the trunk. It's to drive it. So why don't we go do that? This is literally the worst part of this car. Why does it make this noise? I don't know. I rented a Nissan GTR for a week when I was in Las Vegas, and that is what made me want to buy one. Not the hundreds of articles that I read or videos that I watched telling me about how cool this car was or how it performed. Not the fact that this is honestly a pretty limited production vehicle, and not the fact that I didn't have a car. In fact, I probably have too many cars at this point. But driving that car for a week and understanding that it is not only a serviceable daily driver with some serious practicality to it, but once you put your foot down, it performs like nothing else that I had ever been in my life. This car right now is entirely stock, and I'm okay with it, but there are going to be some changes that are forthcoming. The first thing that I want to do is change the exhaust, not because it doesn't sound good, because honestly, I think it actually sounds pretty great stock, but it is a little understated. And this car, if there's one thing that it is not, it is understated. So we're going to have an exhaust note to match the personality and appearance of the car that I think will be a little bit more appropriate and a little more enjoyable during the driving experience, especially when you're being a little spirited, let's call it. But even entirely in its stock form, this car is an absolute joy to drive. It handles like nothing else that I've ever driven, and obviously the speed is just absurd. The little quirks with the noisiness of the bell housing and the mechanical nature of the transmission and how everything in here almost kind of feels like it's about to fall apart is kind of part of the charm of this vehicle. It's kind of a throwback to cars that I drove back in the day, to my 1988 Mustang with no mass airflow sensors. It was just pure mechanics and pure driving joy, and that's what this car kind of brings back and evokes when you get in the driver's seat. And there's a tunnel coming up, so I'm gonna hit it just a little bit. That was pretty cool. Pretty short, but pretty cool. Even though this car does have high miles, the fact that it has a brand new transmission makes me just kind of not worry about it anymore. I just want to do this. I'm not encouraging anybody to break any laws or do anything unsafe, but if you happen to get your hands on one of these, even for a short while, do yourself a favor and find some place where you can really get into it. It's a car experience that I think everybody should really have. Now, this is kind of a weird video for me to make because I'm clearly not a car reviewer. It's not something that I think that I'm particularly talented at. And this car channel is supposed to be just kind of my experiences with automobiles. So this is kind of what you're getting, an unfiltered, raw, kind of let's talk to the camera kind of video where, you know, I'm just going to give you my opinions and how it makes me feel to actually sit in this car and drive it. And the way it makes me feel is that it puts a smile on my face every single time. It's just crazy. This isn't the fastest car you could buy anymore. When it was first released, it had a 0 to 60 time in the low 3-second range. And then this model year, 2012, with 530 horsepower, Nissan claimed 2.9 seconds 0 to 60, which has been replicated by multiple publications. You could buy an EV now for far less than you could buy this car that'll do 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds and probably outpace it in the quarter that's not going to give you the same kind of experience that this will. Production numbers on these cars have been dwindling year over year. I think last year they only made between 500 and 600 of them for the North American market. In the 2012 model year, this car's model year, those numbers were a little bit higher. I forget what they are exactly, maybe 1,500 cars. But when you look at the global scale of automotive production, this is a tiny, tiny, tiny number. Most cars are produced 10, 20, 100 times that amount, and they sell out instantly. These are specialty items. Not everybody wants this car. Not everybody wants to drive or own or maintain this car. But the people that do, the people that really appreciate this kind of an experience are going to be the ones that are going to desire these kinds of cars for years to come. We saw recently prices of GTRs start to climb. Granted, all used car prices are going up right now, but you used to be able to get this car for like $40,000 to $50,000, and I paid significantly more than that. I'm not entirely sure if they're going to sustain that amount. However, I am pretty convinced that in the future, this car and cars of this ilk will be extremely desirable and probably pretty rare. These cars like to go fast, and people like to go fast in them and do stupid stuff. They get wrecked, they get turned into race cars, they get impounded by the police, and there's fewer and fewer of them on the street every year. In 10 years, who knows? Maybe this will be a collector's item and you won't be able to find them anywhere, and prices will be according to the demand. Let's do launch control. That's the thing. This is one of my dream cars, and I am so excited that it's now mine. This is the spec that I wanted, and the color that I wanted, and the configuration that I wanted, and I'm gonna make it mine to the best of my ability. And you know what? I'm gonna drive this thing until the wheels fall off. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Appreciate you coming and stopping by the car channel. Get subscribed if you are not already for more GTR content. I hope you enjoy this video, and I'll see you next time.